What's going on, everyone? Bros and Beers here, live Monday night on TikTok. That's on the bottom right, Beers and Bros 21. Tonight, we're going to give you some waiver wire players to add heading into the Week 12 season. The way it works with our waivers is it's any players that are owned in under 60% of sleeper leagues. So to start us off, I'm going to start with Taysom Hill as the number one player to add. He's owned in only 50% of sleeper leagues, and this past week he played in 55% of snaps. He blew up with 42.52 points in PPR, had 3 touchdowns. This guy is going to be somebody that is going to steal some touchdowns from Kamara, and he's a guy that can do it all. We've known that about Taysom Hill. He can't really stay healthy, but maybe he's finally putting it all together. We've seen weeks where he just blows up, and it's kind of hard to trust, but maybe this is it. Unfortunately, he does have a bye next week, but then the week after that, in Week 13, he plays against the Rams, who give up the 5th most fantasy points against tight ends in half-point PPR leagues. The second player that you should add is more so for Superflex, but that's Bo Nix. Actually, you could add him in one-quarterback leagues. He's owned in 60% of the leagues on Sleeper, so he barely makes the cutoff. This past week, he had 36.78 points in a 6 points per passing league touchdown. 6 points per passing touchdown leagues. He had 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. In his past 4 games, he has thrown 9 touchdowns to only 1 interception. Looks like he's just breaking out. He's Sean Payton's guy. He's completely running the offense the way that he was drafted to do, and showing why he was the number 12th overall pick. Next week he plays against the Raiders, who give up the 6th most points to quarterbacks, and he doesn't have his bye till Week 14, so it is something to keep in mind. If you're going to pick him up, I would still have a quarterback on your roster or be prepared to stream him. I should mention, though, with Taysom Hill, I would use 25% of your fab if you need a guy, and if you need a tight end, use your number one waiver claim. Now, Bo Nix, use as much as you can. Half of your original fab, if you have that, and if you need a quarterback, number one claim for sure. Another tight end, though, it seems like this is the week of tight ends. So Jonnu Smith is another guy that I would add. He's owned in only 57% of sleeper leagues, and this past week he played 81% of the snaps. He blew up for 28.1 points. He had 6 catches, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He does play New England next week, which isn't a great matchup. They only give up the 19th most points to tight ends, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, with this guy, because he is going to be Tua's number 2 target. Waddle's too much of a boomer bust, and he's looking like a good safety blanket, plus a red zone target. He's already had his bye, too, so if you need a tight end going into the playoffs, this is a great guy to add. I'd use probably 15% of your fab, and he might be somebody you can pick up off of waivers. Or I'm sorry, you can wait till the waivers clear. So this is somebody that you might be able to wait until then. Another tight end that you should add is Zach Ertz. He's owned in 46% of sleeper leagues. In this past week, he played in 80% of the snaps. He's been very consistent recently. So this past week, he had 18.7 points. He had 6 catches on 7 targets for 47 yards and a touchdown. It was some garbage time production, but still, it's against a good defense of the Eagles. And next week he plays against the Cowboys. Cowboys are pretty good against tight end, though, who give up the 22nd most points to tight ends. He does have his bye in Week 14, so that's something to consider. If you need a tight end now, though, I would definitely pick him up. I should mention that all these players are in order, so if you do need tight ends, I would definitely pick up Taysom Hill first. Unless you need somebody for this week, then that would be Jonnu Smith, and then Zach Ertz after that. The next wide receiver that you should add is Christian Watson. He's owned in 49% of sleeper leagues, and he played in 67% of the snaps this past week against the Bears, which was a tough matchup. He still had 4 catches on 4 targets for 150 yards. He plays against San Francisco next week, who give up the 18th most points to wide receivers. Possibly a flex play. The problem with any Packers wide receivers is you don't know who's going to get the ball any given week, but it should be a close game. So it's not like they're just going to give Josh Jacobs the ball every single play. He's already had his bye as well. He's coming off a bye off week 10, and we can see what happened with that. I mean, they had an extra week to figure some stuff out, and maybe they realized that we need to get the ball in Christian Watson's hands more. And they won. So it's paying off already. Give or take 10 to 12% of your fab I would use. And if you really badly need a wide receiver, he's somebody who's more of a boomer bust, but I think his floor is 8 points in PPR. So keep that in mind. Another wide receiver that you should add is Quentin Johnson. He's owned in 58% of sleeper leagues, and this past week he played 82% of the snaps. It was a good matchup against the Bengals, so that did help, but he's looking like he secured the number 2 wide receiver spot on the Chargers, which is great. Herbert's he's playing like an elite quarterback again. Got a great coach. They got a good balance of running the ball and passing the ball, so that helps a lot. He had 12.8 points. Not great efficiency, so he caught 2 of 8 balls, 48 yards, and a touchdown. But that's the thing, is he's going to be a red zone target, and he has a good chance of scoring a touchdown every week. Chance, of course. Next week he plays against the Ravens, though, who give up the most points to wide receivers, and he's already at his bye, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. The next guy that you should add is, of course, another tight end. Seems like it's the week for tight ends. It's a Will Dissly on this part of the same offense. He's owned in 29% of sleeper leagues, and he only played in 57% of the snaps. Still a tight end to own on that offense. He had 18 points on 6 targets. He caught 4 balls for 80 yards and a touchdown. Same thing, he plays against Baltimore next week, who give the 10th most fantasy points to tight ends, and he's already had his bye. If you need a tight end and for some reason those other 3 tight ends are owned, give or take 7 to 8% of your fab, and I would just wait till the waiver is clear to pick him up. The last player that you should pick up, it's a running back. It's not great, but I had to put a running back in there, and that's Rashawn Johnson. He's owned in 13% of sleeper leagues, which isn't a lot. He's available in almost every league. Played in 42% of the snaps. He had 11.1 points, 10 rushes for 33 yards, and a touchdown. Plain and simple, he looks like he's going to be eating into Swift's playing time. Swift had a pretty decent game, but I just don't trust him going forward. Especially if you're in a keeper league or dynasty, he needs to be owned. Swift is not their future. Rashawn Johnson could be. He plays against the Vikings this upcoming week, which they give up the second least amount of points to running backs, so a terrible matchup. He's not a guy that you should pick up to start this upcoming week. He's somebody that you could maybe play in the playoffs as a flex or a desperation play. But if Swift gets hurt, he could be a league winner. The Bears just switched out their offensive coordinator, and hopefully things can change. He's already at his bye as well, so that helps tremendously. So yeah, that is the players that you should add off your waivers this week for Week 12. If you have any questions, please comment on the YouTube video or any of our TikTok videos. We will gladly answer your questions, whether it's start or sit. If you don't have a trade deadline or it hasn't happened yet, we can answer trade questions or waiver wire questions. Anything football related, just comment. If you like our videos, it helps us move up the algorithm. And then if you subscribe, it gives you a notification on whenever we're live or whenever we post videos. We've got other social media channels. We've got Discord, TikTok, X, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, where we try to post videos and content at least weekly. So yeah, Have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.